What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Wednesday Album Club. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging with us. I'm Marty, one of your fine feathered co-hosts for the evening, and we're down a guy tonight, I think, unless he shows up. He's on a work trip. But Kellen, if you're watching, cheers, brother. We miss you. And Logan, happy Wednesday. Happy Hump Day? How's it going?
Happy Hump Day to all y'all out there. It's going pretty good. It's week is moving along. You know, it could go a little faster, but I guess I won't complain. As far as spinning, the exciting news is I saw Acid Bath on Friday night. So nice. Jim, you pulled the other Acid Bath album last week, so it makes sense I'll pull Pagan Terrorism Tactics, and that covers the whole discography. So sold out show. I met people from all across the world, not just the country. Like, you know, people flew from France, Britain, you know, all over to be there. It boggled my mind, and it seemed like a triumph. I will say, it's definitely it's a concert that will like stick with me, and one that made an impact. You will have to be a fan of probably this album, especially to enjoy seeing them live. I think they're kind of catering to this material. So this is my favorite of the two. I was kind of fine with it, but just a heads up if you're, you know, mainly there for Kite Strings Pop, when the Kite String Pops material. So Acid Bath, welcome back. Happy they're back. Great stuff. Stop me if you've heard this one. I went to Goodwill the other day.
Halloween?
And
sorry.
Oh, actually, kind of.
You got that at Goodwill?
I got this at Goodwill.
Kidding me?
Wait, not just this one.
It's an original pressing too.
I got this one too.
Both. Is it an RC?
Road Racer.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Nice.
So, very cool. Yeah, this will be my second copy. I don't have the original. This is my first original pressing or whatever of this one. So excited to have this one on, you know, the OG, I guess. I will say that I have not necessarily clicked with Fatal Portrait before. I've listened to it a bunch of times, but like,
what did you say?
Like, I haven't like super clicked with it. It's just, but I've been getting into it a lot this week. It just feels a lot more.
It's the third Merciful Fate record.
Yes, it's a lot spookier. It has a lot, like, just the vocals from Diamond are so much more haunting. I think the lack of him pretending to play certain characters honestly also helps.
Kind of nice.
And it kind of is, because like this is him being all the different characters. Like when he pretends to be the witch and stuff, you know,
the eye rules.
He sounds like Roxy the Clown kind of a little bit, and you know, or like an innocent old lady. It's just different. They're both awesome albums, and I think I enjoy them both for different reasons.
Both of those at Goodwill. You're shitting me.
Nope. This was probably the best Goodwill find I've ever had. Like one of them up there. So
wow,
that's not going to happen for another 10 years.
No.
Then finally, my accompaniment to Warlord was Omen. This is the only one I own, but I was jamming the first three throughout the week, just as like a good companion to the epic heavy metal we're about to discuss. So I definitely enjoyed this album all the way through. I think my favorites are in the beginning, Death Rider, the Axeman, but then also the chick tracks, if you will. Be My Winch and Bring Out the Beast. Both great songs too. So love Omen.
Nice. Good to see you. Glad you had a good time at Acid Bath.
Appreciate it.
Jim, good to see you. How you doing?
Doing good, man. You know, just surviving and thriving, just like we all are. Glad to be here tonight and talking about what really matters, and that is, of course, heavy metal. So, what I'm spinning, I found this in my local shop, which is dude doesn't usually get in bootleg on death metal or heavy thrash, if you don't believe Possessed is death metal, whatever. But got a bootleg of the Possessed demos here. It's pretty cool, man. Got a nice little insert, and you know, just a chintzy black label that just has like an A and a B on it, you know. But I was pretty stoked about finding it. But yeah, mostly what he gets in is like 80s, more like hair metal. But but he gets in some gems every once in a while, you know, and so I was pretty stoked to see this there, and got that. So been listening to this, and just randomly listen to some Wasp, some Headless Children.
Great album.
It's another one that never gets old for me. Songwriting on this is killer, and has one of the very few covers that I actually enjoy on this. I like the cover of the Who song on here. It's awesome. Let's see, and a little bit of some Immortal, close. Oh my God, Immortal. Immolation.
Close.
Close to A World Below.
Close to Black Shriek.
Higher Coward. I mean, isn't that? I mean, the song titles on this, they're just amazing, man. You know, but I always loved Higher Coward. It just made me laugh. But
My favorite is Father, You're Not a Father. That's
oh yeah. I mean, that song is stellar. But yeah, just going on humorous song titles. But no, yeah, I love just the creepy rippage all over this, and the flailing drum work. Just something to put a smile on your face if you're a person like me. So. Yeah, I kind of went through my 3 that I usually do pretty quick. Guess nothing much new to report. So yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Well, before I show my few what's spinnings, I just a quick announcement. The Panopticon CDs are in from the plant. If you pre-ordered them from Bindrune, I've been packaging all day, and I'm hoping to get everything done and out by the weekend. If not, it'll be Monday. I've made a huge dent in it today. So thank you for your patience. That's coming. And if you ordered shirts or anything I had to print, it's all those are packaged up. They're going out tomorrow. So also heavy metallurgy patches. A couple of you have already reached out and bought some. They are here. $6 for your battle vest. You will look slick in that, let me tell you. Yeah, and what's spinning? There was more out in the car, but I didn't have enough time to waddle up there and get them. So here we go. Here's the other stuff I've been listening to in the shop. This is an EP. Don't know where the band is from. I did not really look into it, but they're called Ice Howl with Reborn and Reforged. This is let me show you the picture real quick because they didn't get the memo. There's no smiling in band photos. They totally did not get that memo, and yeah, for that reason it docks some points for stylistic points. But I gotta say, this is a very good metal band that it's traditional metal but in the Black Sabbath vein. There's a Black Sabbathy riffs, and the vocalist, she is a very good singer. She's got kind of a bluesy mid-range to her. Really good lyrical placement and feeling in her singing, and she doesn't get monotone. She's got a lot of dynamics. Good singer. She really, and since they're tuned a little lower in their Sabbathy riffs mixed in with traditional metal, there's a heaviness to this album or to this EP. I liked it. It's fun. It's not depressing or anything. Like I said, at its core, it's traditional metal. But yeah, I know there's a lot of bands that have been dropping lady singers lately. They're all really freaking good, and this is no exception. Ice Howl, pretty good stuff. I'm basically going through, before I stopped buying music because I'm broke, there was I bought a humongous package of stuff from Stormspell Records, I meant to say. And I'm just getting through them here. This is Adamantis, Far Flung Realm. Don't know where they're from. This is on Cruz del Sur. A very solid new wave traditional metal album. A lot of mid-pace stuff, but the guitar work is really good, and the singer is really solid. He gets a little. The album's a bit long. There's a bunch of songs on this thing. The album tends to get a bit long, but the songs are really well done. I started to get a little fatigued towards the end, but they kept it interesting enough to get me to the end. So don't know much about them. People in the Discord server, go click on the link if you want to join the Discord server. They were saying that, asking me if I heard the new one. It was really good. I haven't. This is all I've heard. Solid band. I'm interested to check more. And yep, I've spun this enough now. I can probably put it on the shelf. But Those Who Reign Below by Merciless. This is their latest album. French death metal band. I loved Abject Offerings and Colored Funeral, but they put out an album after those two back in the day. It was really bad. They kind of changed their style, and I just fell off. I knew they got back together. I think there's an album before this. Oh, it's still in my CD player. Good to know. But they're back, and yeah, there's a lot of Morbid Angelisms on this, but the original vocalist, he still has the Van Drunen kind of singing style, but it's still he's very reminiscent of the early years. He hasn't lost his step at all. This is a good album, a lot of songs, but they're all really well crafted, dark, brooding, excellent death metal from France. Yeah, but tonight we're here to discuss this masterpiece, 1983's Deliver Us by Warlord, which came out on Metal Blade Records. A little bit of history of the band to those who may not be familiar. Warlord is an American heavy metal band formed in 1980 and based in Los Angeles, California. Since its formation, the band was led by guitarist William J. Tsamis and drummer Mark Zonder. Rest in peace, William Tsamis. It's a bummer. Warlord is the brainchild of guitar songwriter Bill Tsamis and drummer Mark Zonder, who had made their way down from San Jose, California to Los Angeles. The new band caught the attention of fledgling record company owner Brian Slagle, whose label Metal Blade Records had recently issued Metal Massacre. Yep. I'm skipping because there's a lot here. Slagle was impressed by Warlord's semi-progressive style inspired by such diverse acts as Rainbow, Angel Witch, and Jethro Tull. Slagle decided to offer the band a spot on his next compilation, and Warlord would make their vinyl debut with Lucifer's Hammer on 1982's Metal Massacre 2. Earning rave reviews, Warlord made a repeat appearance with Miss Victoria on Metal Massacre 3 and were signed to Metal Blade for their 83 Deliver Us 6-song mini album, which got the band featured on important publications such as Kerrang! So, we'll start with you, Logan. I don't know if this is an album you'd heard before today, but it's a classic.
Yeah, thankfully, it would have been about a year ago. There was a Island episode. You know, Jeff at Gas Mask and Hand Grenades likes to do these Island episodes. There was a heavy metal one. I took part in it. I don't remember if you were there, Marty, or if you were just in the comments, but it was great time. I encourage everyone to go check it out. It showed me something that when it came to like classic heavy metal, I was still very much in like the shallow end kind of it. Like I pulled
That's with me and Sludge.
Exactly. We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. And
correct.
Like going into it, I was like, here's my new wave of British heavy metal stuff. Here's like some of the modern, like Eternal Champion and Sumerlands kind of bands. And I, of course, had a Manila Road one as well. But everyone was pulling so many different albums from the 80s specifically that I had never heard of or had heard of but never spun. And Warlord was one of them. It was one of the ones that I, saw and people were raving. It was an EP, but it made it on the list of people's top 10 heavy metal albums. That, caused me to take notice. I checked it out relatively quickly after that, and it was kind of immediate. I was very much just taken by it. It sounds dark. It sounds mysterious. There's this like dark fantasy element to it. And most importantly, it brings like the riffs and just emotion in heavy metal. From the 80s, it sounds relatively distinct. Like, honestly, up until we did that Omen album, Marty, I didn't really have anything to directly compare to. It has such a unique sound from, this is 1983, you said? So yeah, from 1983, such a unique sound. And I mean, hell, that Warlord was 1985, right? Now I think about it. So this is a kind of before its time kind of thing to me. And I've basically been listening to it throughout the whole year. So it really was not that hard to get into it for this episode. In fact, it just, I basically kept listening to it at the same amount. And this is classic, I think. Like, I heard it basically immediately. It sounded unique and special from the scene. And I think almost made more special because it's still like a hidden gem. You don't just run across people who are, touting Warlord, but then like, you know, people do Iron Maiden. You know, it just makes it something that you have to work for, something that you have to find and grow to appreciate it, and that makes it more special, I think. So yeah, it's been good, and just listening to this week, you know, icing on the cake of my experience with this EP.
Yeah. This is an album I heard. I didn't hear it in 83. It was a little later than that, but it was before the 90s. I heard it in the late 80s, I think. A friend of mine picked it up on tape, dubbed it for me. And actually, Aaron, the Metal Theologian, thanks, Aaron, sent me this as a gift. So a very, very cool gift. But yeah, it is one of those classics. It's just, it sounds like such a perfect band for Metal Blade. During that time, Metal Blade just had a knack for signing up bands that had that mystical American metal quality to it. And this is one of those special, you know, Jack, I don't know, you're talking to super simple, you know, there's restraint on this album. I think the songwriting is perfect in the fact that there might be an aura of simplicity in the main riff to create memorable hooks. But if you listen to the guitar work, there's nothing simplistic about the guitar work. The guitar work is very mature, very skilled, and the dueling leads are just add so much class to this material. And then the vocals of Jack, his name is King Damien on the his name is Jack Rucker. They got a great singer. He's got a fragile quality to his voice, but he can bring the power when it's needed. And he's kind of perfect for this music because there's a lot of give and take. And Mark Zonder, man, the restraint he shows is for the service of the song. And when he does unleash, it's tasteful, and he brings a bombastic element to the songs when the songs call for that. I think it is, you know, William and Zonder work really well together, and they complement each other really well. And I think they each kind of played to their power, each other's power quite well on here. This is a fantastic EP. And I do have a bit, it's not a complaint, it's just how it's some of the song placement is a little strange to me, and the fact that it's an EP when there were other songs that could have been added to this to make it a full length that would have killed just as hard. Like, why isn't Mrs. Victoria on this? Why isn't Mrs. Victoria or Aliens? I mean, they put out an EP with Aliens and another song on it, and Mrs. Victoria would have, that song rules, and it should have been on this record. But
I like
anyway.
Soliloquy a lot too. I think that would have been a good addition. Yeah,
all three of those could have been on here, and it would have been a proper, unbeatable full-length album. But you know, it's an EP from a band that, yes, should have been bigger than they were. Granted, they didn't play shows, maybe a couple for now they're a full band. You know, there's Mark and a bunch of other guys. I haven't heard any of the new Reformation stuff after Williams passing, but great stuff. Jim.
Yeah, man. Definitely something that bypassed me in my 80s metal world. And in fact, I can't remember when they first got on my radar. It was very recently though. And I think it was actually like a Ben Brain Smasher posting about them, ranting about this record on Instagram that put it on my radar. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And it was like really shortly after that, like I ran across a first press at a record store that had they wanted it for a reasonable price.
You say his name and he comes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah, Ben, I was just giving you props for I'm pretty sure you turned me on to these guys from that post you put up about them. But anyway, took it home, loved it, man. Just immediately, like just from the first note onwards, I was like, oh my God, man, this is just so solid, you know, and you know, it wasn't any work for me. And I know it was an odd choice for tonight, you know, an EP, but really it's 28 minutes long. If we're going to call Rain and Blood a full length album, I think 28 minutes is fine. Plus we've done 15-minute long grind albums on this show before. So I didn't feel too weird about it. But yeah, you know, and I think it basically kind of just leads, all of this leads into my question, you know, everything that we've kind of discussed tonight. So I think I'm just going to dive right into it. And that's that. Warlord are one of the many, for me, under the radar metal blade bands that I missed out until recently, though I was already deep into metal by the mid 80s. This album strikes me as an amalgam of pure, epic, and American power heavy metal with dashes of prog. Do you think this uneasy classification harmed them in becoming more well known? Or, and I'm listing a bunch of ors here, was it the early reluctance to play live that Marty alluded to? What could it have been? Their semi-Christian allegorical / themes? Could it just have been the rise of speed metal and thrash that sort of like covered them over? Or was it some mixture of the above or something else entirely? I'm kind of interested to get what everybody's thoughts are on that, because they certainly were deserving of more praise. I mean, this is, and it's, for me, it's a perfect EP. So whether you're in the chat or you're on the show with us, let's discuss.
What do you think, Logan?
As someone who was not alive at all during this time, it's kind of tough to backseat quarterback, right, and look back at the 80s.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, exactly. If only. I'll try better next time. I think, though, from my perspective, something else maybe got in the way. I don't know. Like, I always think that the scene that they were from was just not super conducive to heavy metal. Like, didn't Omen kind of run into a similar thing from LA, or at least like close by that area of California? Very glam heavy scene, got swallowed up in, I think that
well, so did Slayer. I mean, Slayer was from LA.
Yep, but they tacked on to the winning team, which is, Jim, you did mention there's a winning team in this question. It's thrash. Thrash came out as the counterculture in America, not heavy metal. That was the British thing. And I think because of that, bands like Omen and Warlord did get pushed aside and, not heavily touted when it came to talking about American metal. The other thing, though, I think is this is an EP. This is, people talk about it, and I'm not going to go out for an EP when I could go find a full-length album, if that makes sense. Like, I think there is some more weight to a full-length versus, a mini album. This doesn't feel like a mini album, but when you're hearing about it, you don't know that. To me, I thought this was like, 4 songs, 20 minutes, more traditional metal, like a Judas Priest clone, but this is anything but that. But just hearing people talk about, you should check out the Warlord EP, doesn't exactly, have staying power with you. And they changed singers as well, and I think that had an impact on them. I mean, this guy, you said his name earlier, but he's amazing.
It's Jack Rucker.
King something on here. King
Damien the First or something. Yeah.
He's amazing. He is like the, crux of their success. And this was it. This is all they had him on. And I think the fact that also the full-length album, and then the Cannons of Destruction Have Begun.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically just this. There's like 2 other songs that aren't on here. Aliens is on there, and then 1 other track. But it's basically just a reworking of this album, except without like the more mysterious production and with a different singer. So I feel like that probably hurt them too a little bit.
And on the next full length, there was another
2000.
Singer. Yeah,
and that was 2002, right?
Yeah, there was big gaps, and yeah.
So to me, there's a lot of reasons why, and I could kind of see all of them. So that's my take, at least.
Yeah. I mean, basically, you summed it up, and the fact that you're putting out an EP on a new metal label that is signing up a lot of bands in this hemisphere, sonically, stylistically, and you don't follow it up by getting on the road. There was no internet back then. There just wasn't. Logan's right. You put out an EP. Back then, I think tape prices back then, I don't remember tapes being ever really cheap. It seemed like they were expensive at Camelot, and I really had to scrimp and save to buy a couple tapes. But to pay you know, cassette prices for back then. It wasn't cheap, and there's just only a handful of songs, and not following up with a tour. I mean, hell, they could have been on the road with Fate's Warning. They could have been on the road with Trouble. I mean, they could have, you know, I don't know if it would have worked well with Slayer, but there were bands on the label that would have complemented each other well and put out a good package. Whether that package would have pulled a lot of people, it remains to be seen. But you know, Logan's right. Thrash was coming in fast, and then you start changing singers. I mean, there's only a handful of bands ever that have changed key singers and didn't suffer for it. You know, Halloween definitely traded up. You know, and even their second change was a good change. So they got lucky, but a lot of bands struggle, especially if you get a loyal fan base and you start switching your singers around. Oof, it's tough. It changes the whole character and dynamic of your band. And if people love your band for a certain sound and you're coming out, yeah, the music might be the same, but you know, Scanner, that's another band from Germany that were on Noise early on. They established a great sound, and then every album except for the last few have been different singers. So it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot over and over and over again. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a combination of all that stuff, and the fact that there was just large gaps in Warlord's catalog, and then William and his wife went off to do Lordian Guard, which I have a couple Lordian Guard things that have some reworked Warlord songs on them, and it just has a very bedroom quality, like him playing with a drum machine and his wife singing on it. She's a decent singer, but it doesn't have the polish of going into a studio and having a real drummer, and you can tell they were just kind of doing it as a passion project. It didn't sound like something that they planned on releasing, to my ears anyway. But anyway, I'm rambling. Jim, what were your thoughts?
It's kind of a mystery to me. I mean, that's kind of why I asked the question. So, I don't really have much to add, other than the fact that, yeah, I mean, I think just from my own very skewed, small world perspective, I was just looking for the heaviest sounds available. So really other than Priest and Sabbath, I didn't listen to much, just like straight heavy metal or epic heavy metal or anything like that. It just at the time wasn't heavy enough for me. I just was looking for I wanted to hear the double bass, I wanted to hear the fast guitars and all that kind of stuff. And even Priest was kind of a slow burn for me. Priest didn't really hit me hard until Painkiller came out. And then after Painkiller, then I went back and really started to appreciate Priest. Now they're one of my favorite bands. I've got everything up until the mid '80s is sitting behind me right now. But yeah, I think for me personally, it was just because my attention was elsewhere. And so when I thought, Metal Blade, I was thinking, Show No Mercy and stuff like that, even like my first purchase of Fate's Warning was No Exit. So it was after, Alder was already gone. So, and No Exit, the first song off that was Anarchy Divine, it was on Headbanger's Ball. And that was a really heavy song. So yeah. Again, when you're talking about things that are kind of comparable in this genre, it was stuff that was a little bit heavier. Though I will admit, and I have, that Queensryche, I was always into them, and these guys are probably equivocal.
Yeah, but, early Queensryche. Yeah, that'd be a good tour. This would have been a good opening band for Queensryche.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that would have been a great show. But for whatever reason, so I think it was just, and a combination of factors there for me personally. But I don't, and even the magazines I read, I read thrash metal magazine, what I mean? That was the whole focus of it, what I mean? So I think that's why I missed out on them. But I think there's a little bit of joy that I am personally feeling, finding out about bands that frankly I should have known about, during my era, my comeuppance as a metalhead. And
it's impossible to hear everything. It just
it is. And but what's great for me is being turned on to these bands, later in life, and really just appreciating them, and frankly finding out through them by people that are younger than me. Ben's younger than I am, and learning from folks that have a passion for metal that is equivocal or perhaps even greater than mine, that are turning me on to bands that I literally, walked right past when I was young. You know what I mean? And they were here, alive and putting their sounds out. So, but it's a wonderful thing about our community that here I am, I was alive then, and I'm still learning from, my peers here. And, and I think it's, one of the coolest things, about, doing the show, but also like, my experience through this record is that sort of appreciation I have for, my friends in metal of all ages and all dispositions, never letting me down and turning me on to good sounds. So thank you all for that. Yeah, that's it. So
right on.
Musicality and composition.
Yeah, musicality and composition of Deliver Us, Logan.
All right. Yeah, I guess real quick, I want to touch on where I feel like this fits in, kind of like, because I guess I am curious. In your question, Jim, you were hinting at like the power metal thing, and I didn't hear it, or maybe I wasn't looking for it. As you all know, I'm not a big power metal guy, so maybe it wasn't like what I was picking
American power metal as distinct from European.
True.
And which I think more like early Queensryche, some Manila Road, Metal Church, that to me is like
Omen.
Yeah.
Virgin Steel
or Epic. For me, like it gets a little bit lost. Like I think Epic heavy metal and American power metal like kind of ride along the same kind of track to me a little bit. I think American power metal gets a little heavier, a little bit faster, a little bit more double bass, sometimes leading into thrash. But this is a huge argument that I've seen like a lot, like does American power metal even exist? There's people that don't believe it does. That is, in terms of like what I'm talking about, like, okay, no, dude, what you're talking about is just epic heavy metal, or, so, I mean, we could get into that, but I'm not, calling myself a genre expert. I'm just like saying, like, based on what I hear and the terms that I've heard ascribed to the bands that I like, that's where that tag comes from. So,
hey, Rachel, thanks a bunch for that. We appreciate you. Cheers. Thanks a bunch. Oops.
Cheers.
I'm trying to send that and do that. I'm doing too many things here. Thanks a bunch.
Yeah, anyway. I guess I'm here to kind of get into that conversation. Like, I have no business talking about what is or isn't any of these genres back in the 80s. But that doesn't stop me, For me, because I already had this thought with Omen, and then we did Liege Lord, and I know you guys did Vicious Rumors in the past.
Yep.
And there's a line for me between Omen and Warlord and Vicious Rumors and Liege Lord. So, and I think it is the speed of it, the double bass intensity, maybe a bit of where the vocals are. This just feels, and I think, Marty, you were already talking about the restraint and the simplicity a little bit earlier on, but that's like one of the predominant features of this is just how much each of these players is really holding back on their instruments. You can tell they're all magnificent, impressive players in their own right, but I think they're really restraining themselves at different sections of the song so the song can be just a heavy metal song, like an epic heavy metal song. So to me, this is just American heavy metal to even like proto epic doom, epic metal. I don't know. I would need Kellen here if Kellen could pop up in in the chat or somewhere to school me on it. That's kind of where I feel this kind of lines up, and I think that's what makes it unique in feeling and in the scene. It just has this element to it. It feels dark. So it feels kind of medieval, dark fantasy like. The instruments, and we'll talk about this more in the production, they do feel a bit more restrained and, just atmospheric in nature. And I feel like that level of restraint is not common in, what American power metal would do. Talking about individual band members and, what they bring to the table. Of course, the vocals by Damien, I think, are the true, king, the true crown of this album or this EP. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard a performance just like this. It's very clean, but then it doesn't sound like overproduced. It's unique, you know.
And he effortlessly goes up into that falsetto thing where, like I said, there's like fragility. It's like there's no big screams. It's just he fits whatever the music is giving him, really, and it's a nice touch.
Yeah, he really caters to the song. Like, there's ballads on this. He hits it there. They're
ballady
anthems, ballady.
Yeah, I don't know if it's full on ballad, but it feels like it. But
hey, man, when I'm listening to Winter Tears, I'm crying a little bit. It's it's getting me. I'm
sopping up the tears with your acid bath booklet.
Oh yeah, yep. And then on the more ripping tracks, like, you know, Lucifer's Hammer or Children of the Dam or Child of the Dam, different song. He rises to the challenge, and I think the fact that he's just on this one recording just makes his performance all the more like mystical. It's the fact that all that this lineup released was just this one EP, I think does help with the cult-like status that it has, and like that feeling of unearthing a gem, you know, when you do find it. The guitar work is especially restrained. I think that's the most restrained element, and you can really hear him a lot in the background. Like, he's a very impressive guitar player. He adds up like these flourishes, these lead elements. And
I think the leads are great because they're so tasteful. They're not shred. There's melody lines within those solos, which to me says so much more than, you know, Yngwie stuff.
The whole performance is very melody based.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, there's only a couple riffs that aren't necessarily based around melody. And even then there's still, you know, melodicism to it. Just look at how it is opened by the title track. That's all just him building that one melody slowly through a couple different passages of, you know, the riff. It's beautiful. His guitar work is equally on par with the vocals, and then the drum performance here also phenomenal. I absolutely love the drum performance.
I like the drum sound too.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm stepping.
We're all going to be saying that. No, I love it. Hey, go for it.
Wait your turn, Marty.
I don't wanna. I don't have to.
Whose stream is it?
Yeah, it's our stream.
Yeah, okay.
I like talking. Yeah.
Hey, talk away, man. The bombast of the performance really makes a lot of the songs, but then at the same time, it's tasteful. He's not just going big the whole time. You know, his work with the snares and the toms are especially phenomenal. Like, he will just, like, how he builds up to Penny for a Poor Man, you know?
Yep.
He's got that snare, like, it just builds a little bit and then goes bump, 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 bump. It just builds perfectly. And but then when he needs to go all in on, like, Child of the Damned or Lucifer's Hammer, it's phenomenal. He has the driving drums down too. Like, he plays perfect double bass, and we'll talk about the production as well. But the production basically makes his drum set sound awesome. It's phenomenal. And then the bass gets a chance to shine. Like, I can often hear it. It's often present. It adds elements and, you know, a little bit of extra heaviness to it. So, yeah, I mean, this is just an impressive album all the way through. It's unique. It feels dark. I feel like I'm in, like, a sword and sorcery land, like Dark Crystal, hell, even Masters of the Universe kind of. It's just fucking cool, you know. So, yeah.
I was more of a Thundercats guy myself.
Yeah.
Chitara.
Well, there you go.
All right, Jim.
Oh man, musicality and composition, dude. There's so much to be said here. You know, Logan touched on a lot of it. Let's just talk about our Lord and Savior Damian King 1.
Jack, otherwise known as Jack.
Otherwise known as Jack. Man, what a great singer, man. His enunciation is perfect. There isn't a moment on this record where I have trouble understanding what he's saying, but yet he delivers every vocal with like intensity and power, and on Winter Tears, with that falsetto, like I love how you described it, Marty. Like there's like a fragility to it. And it's like a fragility that's like emotional, not in the delivery. Because even though it's like falsetto, there's like such like sorrow and longing behind it. Like I feel it. Like it's very effective, man. In lesser hands, that would have came off chintzy and terrible. But in someone with his skill level, all you really feel is the emotion behind it, like the human power behind it, and ends up being one of my favorite moments on the record, which usually outside of Mr. Diamond, I'm not a huge fan of falsetto, on this, on Warlord, especially Winter Tears, it's absolutely amazing. And just more about the vocals here, because I know we have a lot to talk about, music wise too, but the lyrics are just fantastic, man. Child of the damned, as holy as a whore, man. What a great line, man. Like I love that. Every time I hear that line, it just gets me, man. Every time. On Black Mass, nobody cares. Hey man, nobody. Guess what? No one cares about. It's like, just like these like simple terms, like delivered with like such sincerity, like you really, you feel like you relate to them, you understand them. For me, it felt like, yeah, he's saying what I want to say. He's saying what I feel. He's speaking the words that I want to feel. um, you know, and deliver us from evil, now all that you have is gone, just like, like basically like, rendering us down to like, all that's left is our spiritual selves. We came into this alone. We're going to leave it alone. I kind of like that sentiment, of like, you know, like almost kind of like a deep seated sorrow. Like it's palpable throughout these 28 minutes of music. And I think it's, um, I definitely lay most of that, success of that atmosphere at his feet. But moving on, another thing to talk about, is for me, like the keyboards, like a full time keyboard player who takes her job super seriously and completely like, you know, fulfills like a huge, and it's not a fractional like, contribution. It is a large contribution to the overall sound of this record, to every song. Like every song has, tons of vibrance and color, because of, her contribution, whether she's, playing melody lines completely adjacent to what the guitar is doing, which is often, but even when they kind of sync up, like, it just gets like super powerful. Whatever the choices that are made, like, I really feel like this EP would not be the same without it. It's very strong. I really like it, and
She adds a mystical quality that's on the album. I think it's
it,
very
it,
subtle. The synths are often kind of buried and very subtle, but it adds space to it.
oh,
It's cool.
you're right, Marty. Here, that whole kind of fantastical vibe that Warlord lives in, is made, stronger and more, impervious, to, seeing it like as a concrete thing, with that contribution that she makes that has that sort of magic to it. So I really appreciate it. I just don't think this album will be the same without it. And where I kind of just, when I'm listening to most metal albums, it's just kind of like something to kind of an accoutrement, if you will, that adds. In this case, that's not. It's just, to me, the keyboards on this record are of equal importance to the guitar and the drums here. Speaking of the guitar, yes, Marty says it perfectly. It's all about the phrasing here. Tim's phrasing is amazing. He's just, first of all, incredible songwriter. These songs are awesome. They are, they're simple in the terms of the other, kind of like, 4.5, 5.5 minutes for the most part. verse, bridge, chorus arrangements, but within that there is like a professionalism that is really strong and carries you through, and he kind of plays around the riffs, playing them open chords 1 minute, maybe doing a little bit of palm there, like doing a little bit of thing. He's always adding color to these riffs. So what ends up being simple in terms of like the thought process, the editing process, if you will, that goes into, getting everything to link up just right and to make sense together. It's not sewn together. It's really kind of woven, his style of guitar playing and his songwriting. That's what makes Warlord powerful, because it's really obvious that the guy can shred, but instead of just like beating us over the head with capability, he is, asking us to come along the ride with him on a great song, and then another great song, and another one, and until next thing 20 minutes later, you've listened to a whole album of great songs. So that to me is, I'd much rather hear, that sort of story from a guitar player than just like, okay, let me sit in front of a metronome for 30 minutes and shred scales. There's, not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me here, like, this is what I can emotionally connect with, and so I'm very appreciative of it. Zonder, you're talking about restraint. That's where restraint is. I mean, we know how much of an amazing drummer he is. We've heard him with Fate's Warning. We know the kind of complexity and on-time signatures, which he's kind of a master of, and the things he can do with his hands. And while a lot of that sort of flair that we come to know Zonder later on for is absent here. It's just such solid, just pure heavy metal drumming done.
It's old school. It's old school metal drumming, man.
It's old school metal drumming. And
there's even some cowbell on one of the songs. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Oh yeah. What
it's an old time rocker.
Loose First Hammer's got the cowbell, man.
Yeah,
it's awesome, man. And dude, I know we haven't gotten to production yet, but man, I love his kick sound. It is so natural. I feel like I'm in the practice space with him. I got my head in his
he's got maybe a pillow stuffed in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, something.
It just sounds so organic and so amazing. Like it just makes me smile every time. I love the drum sound on here. And and the prominence of the bass, like on Winter Tears, where you can kind of hear really well what the bass is doing, that the walk that it's doing there, everything here has its place, doesn't overstay, doesn't overstep, and really laid the blueprint for what I feel is epic power metal, or epic heavy metal, and or American power metal, or why don't we just give it all the other tags and just call it just the blueprint for really fantastically delivered heavy metal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, look at this. Here he is. What up, man?
Hey, how we doing?
Good. You want to catch up?
I'm crashing the party. No, go ahead. I'm trying to catch up. I think, don't know if you were in musicality and composition.
That's where we're at right now. If you want to say your initial reaction.
Yeah.
First impression.
First impression. This is an absolutely sort of mysterious record, I think, is the first thing that I came away with.
Mystical. Yeah, mysterious.
Yeah,
mystical.
like the same sort of thing when I heard Awaken the Guardian. It has that kind of just magic to it. That was the first impression I had when I listened to this.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the private chat. Am I visible at all?
You're good. Okay. Everything's good.
Okay.
Now I got you. Yeah, I wasn't seeing you at first, but
I was like, am I just all by myself in my hotel room talking by my? Okay. So that was the initial impression, which is kind of, this is a record that has a certain kind of magic. The album begins with that sort of sweeping wind sound and just perfect sort of sets the stage. So the musicality and composition to this, it's a mostly mid-paced record. And just super catchy stuff, but it has, I think, probably I just want to be very brief here, since I know you guys have gone at it at length.
Or, dude, you're right on the same page. We're all good.
Okay. I think this record does the best job of incorporating elements of the 1970s heavy metal scene like early heavy metal scene into an American epic heavy metal record.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that like I think Sirith Ungol struggled to sort of find it early on, this record at their first swing at it takes part of like the sort of acoustic passages, the part of like Black Sabbath's catalog that was kind of like hippie 90s hard rock stuff. It takes that element and perfectly incorporates this into an early sort of Metal Blade like epic record. So many bands sort of struggled to find a way to incorporate that progginess in a way that still felt like a 1980s heavy metal record. And this band off the bat nails it. Like some of the cool like acoustic passages on this record, the keyboard incorporations, the pacing of it keeps it so kind of like that mid pace reminds me of the kind of strong song structure you would get from more of an American power epic band in terms of the pacing of it. But all the mysticism and sort of eeriness about this record feels like they incorporated aspects of like the 70s prog scene and brought it to an early Metal Blade release. So I guess that'll just be my short notes on terms of the composition and what I think makes this record special.
Right on. Yeah. And I really don't have much more to add other than the fact that you listen to this music and there isn't a single note out of place. You can tell that William, this is a studio project at this point. I think they played 1 or 2 shows. I have no idea. I don't know how much of it's true or and I haven't really honestly delved that deeply into the lore of Warlord, but you can tell he probably put a lot into these songs. Granted, they started in 80, their first EP is 83. They had 2 demos previous. So, but it just sounds like he really pined over every single instrument. He played bass on this as well. Everything has its place. There's nothing that jumps out as off or odd or disjointed. Every riff, you know, how the solos lead up to like these twin lines. It's just so well composed. And if you listen to the actual solos he's playing, the melody within the solos, like I said, he's not an Yngwie type. You could tell he can, but I think of other solos back in the day that actually were a song within a song. For me, was Ace Frehley. I mean, granted, he's not the world's best guitar player. And in fact, as he's gotten older, he's gotten worse. But in his heyday, I loved the fact that those solos were simplistic, but they really were a song within the song and added to the song. But William is obviously more of an advanced player than that, but his choices, his note choices are so perfect. And the way he has interplay between guitar lines and solos is fantastic. And it really brings a lot of character and maturity to these songs. Tsamis worship Paganini and Stravinsky. Right on. Nothing out of place. Songwriting, composition. It's like I said, there's a few things I'll mention later on about the song placements, but hey, there he is. How you doing, Laz? You feeling better? Yeah, I have no complaints. Everything on here is perfectly placed, from the vocal melody lines, Jack's choices and the vocal things he does. And it makes me wonder, maybe Ben is right. Maybe William wrote all these vocal lines too and told the guy, you're singing it this way because that's the way I envision it. Maybe that's why he was a one and done singer. He's like, man, fuck this. All singers, they have a bit of an ego, a little bit of a I want to show what I can do, but he's singing this guy's stuff. I don't know. This is fly on the wall stuff. We have no idea, but yeah, songwriting, musicality, composition. It's great. It's perfect. Let's talk about the production. Logan.
About the singer real quick. It's a bummer he didn't do anything else. Like,
I don't know.
Right? I thought I looked at Metal Archives. I didn't see, maybe there's like one other band.
Well, Mrs. Victoria he did, and that was on a comp. Yeah. And then
there's a re-release of the Deliver Us with
Miss Victoria. There's Damian King II. Yeah, this is a different guy.
Yeah, it's just a bummer. He has such a
Rick Cunningham sang on the single voice afterwards. Yeah, weird.
Mm-hmm. But for production, this is an example of like I think the production fits this album perfectly. Maybe other albums it wouldn't necessarily work and wouldn't be ideal, but for Deliver Us, this is a perfect production. It creates a mood. It feels dark. It feels unique. It fits the cult-like image that this EP has kind of built over the decades. And yeah, it feels of its own time, kind of that like early Metal Blade period. I mean, like listening to Omen, this kind of has a similar feel in production. And it's something that, you can't replicate no matter how hard you try. And it's that much better for it. It's clear, but it kind of feels shrouded. Like all the performances and everything feel a little bit shrouded or further away. And as I said, I think that makes it feel more like dark and just lends the imagery of fantasy to me. What does cut through this like kind of distant production is the guitar melodies, the guitar lines, and the vocal performance does just a phenomenal job. Like both kind of being center stage, not taking over the production, but just being like kind of right in the middle. And yeah, that's great. The highlight though is definitely the drum performance for me. And I feel like others will mention that as well. It just sounds so live, so organic, so natural, especially just the toms. I love the tom rolls and the tom fills. And I think it's because the drumming here is top notch. So this is the Fates Warning guy. I didn't realize that till you guys were talking earlier, but
the second, he's the second
okay.
Fates Warning drummer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, his drum fills on here are top notch, and the production just does such a good job of making them land like, cannon fire, or they just feel bombastic and thematic. And the double bass too. Like when he brings in the double bass, it doesn't feel clickety, it doesn't feel thumpy. It's just this rolling feeling. And maybe just because he does it so seldom, it sounds great.
That's a good point. That double bass, when he brings it, it really brings a thunderous. It really pushes the song. Whereas like European power metal, it's 99% double bass through the whole song. You know what I mean? Anyway, go ahead.
That restraint and that mainly it being mid-paced and even how the production fits. It just makes me feel like this is like that epic heavy metal, epic doom, epic like proto epic doom kind of EP. And this is just a perfect production for this product, and I wouldn't change a thing. And I think it's a unique production and really helped with the cult-like status of this album.
Right on. Kellen.
Yeah, so I think for me the takeaway is this, sounds like a very much an American band, which we always talk about. It kind of have like a rougher appeal, a rougher sound to it.
Working man's power metal.
Yeah. There was like a blue collar sort of thing going on. But for me, like what makes this unique is they also are a deeply melodic band. Like this is a super hooky, very melodic listen. The singing style is highlighted there, and I love the marriage of those two qualities. I don't think you find a lot of American bands that are able to tap into something that is this sort of like ornate. I don't want to use the word necessarily gentle.
Ornate is great. That's perfect for this. Yeah, ornate.
Right, great. But there's a softer touch to this, and it's something that I really appreciate about the listen. So as much as you have like some rougher sort of 1980s wash going on with the production style, I love that like when the guitars and the vocals need to be deeply melodic, all of that there is on display. I don't think we're going to actually the clarity of the mix for 1983, I think is, I'm listening to it now probably in some form in a compressed fat. Like I don't have the original pressing, but it sounds clear enough for me. It sounds alive enough for me. I really don't have any complaints. And just in the same way I mentioned the sort of that atmospheric quality being the initial impression about this record, I think that's highlighted in the production here. Somewhere between the reverb in this mix turns into the atmosphere in this mix.
Yep.
And that's kind of the overarching experience, not only when I first hear the record.
Well, same with Awaken the Guardian. They're kind of the same
100%.
counterpart. Yeah.
Right. Like it's the thing about me that makes Awaken the Guardian unique for me, though, is that I always feel like there's new worlds to explore in that record.
Yeah.
Like I've never sort of peered around every corner or, you know, ventured into every sort of like cave in that world. Whereas like Deliver Us feels to me like so much more like immediate, here are these songs for you, super catchy, super melodic kind of. It's not as quite of a complex record for me. So I just think the in the same way that I'm sort of praising the atmosphere of this record, I think that's going to tie into the production notes.
Jim.
Yeah, I think Kellen had something on the head here. You know, like many lesser bands, you know, utilize a lot of other tools to create, you know, artificially create, you know, a feeling of, you know, dread and mysticism with other tools outside of you know, something that can be utilized live in a performance capacity. You know what I mean? Where, you know, whether that be sampling or what have you, or you know, what these guys do, like, you know, guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, vocals, it's strictly through their performance and through a very live sounding recording, you know, that they are able to, you know, transport you, you know, from the everyday, you know, into this other realm. And I don't know how they did it, man, or how they do it, but you know, as like as Colts in terms of like in comparison to like a, you know, major label recording, you know, this sounds, you know, that I think it just adds to, you know, the production there, adds to the performances to help you on that highway to, you know, a better place. You know, a world where we're, you know, contemplating death, but we're not completely in despair, or, you know, feeling as holy as a whore. You know, and an interesting realm where we're talking about Lucifer's Hammer and Black Mass, but we're not a black metal band. Yeah, yeah, you know, there's a lot of like, you know, kind of contradictions here, you know, through like the sound and the presentation of the music, the production, I think helps augment, you know, and almost like that there's, you know, a conflict between, you know, being that sort of questioning person, but also, you know, longing for spiritual fulfillment, you know. So it's something that I can kind of relate to, and it makes me feel kind of close to this album. But I what brings me closer to it is that it doesn't have all these like, you know, chintzy bells and whistles to help, you know, take you there. You know, that's not the keys to their kingdom. You know, they rely on a very, very authentically sounding performance. Like it sounds like it's coming out the mains of a small club, you know what I mean? But not in a bad way, like in a really good show, extremely tightly performed way. And that kind of transportative sound, you know, like when you're at a great show, everything's lined up, all the instrumentation is working well. The sound man actually gives a shit behind the board. He's really servicing the band, you know, which is a rarity. We all know, you know, when everything just kind of comes together and you kind of like have this out of body experience with music, like that is what the production of this album is for me. That is what, you know, this band is for me. Every time I listen to it, I feel that. I feel like I'm at a great show and I'm losing myself. And I mean, if that's not what this is all about, then I don't know what is, man. You know, I mean, I wish that I had done something as cool as this as a musician. You know, I haven't, I never will, but I'm glad somebody did.
Yeah, the production is for me perfect for the times. It's very much a product of its time, and for the label it's on. Again, the only comparable thing I would is Awaken the Guardian. I think Awaken the Guardian, it feels like I'm in the late 1600s, looking for witches on that album. I love it. Just the swirling, the reverb and the atmosphere. And it's on here as well. It's just, Warlord is a different form of mysticism. It isn't the witch trial mysticism. It's this is more spiritual, for lack of a better word, and ornate. Perfect. That's a perfect adjective for this. It's a very ornate sounding EP. The production perfectly services the music on it, and it gives very spatial music a lot of space to be what it is, and a lot of room for all the instruments to be heard and all the individual performances to shine, and all the layers, all these little layers that come through. It's just a very well produced piece of music, and it's really the fifth member of the band. Really, it's yeah, for sure. Let's talk about favorite, least favorite songs. Kellen.
So I love the opening aspect of this record. Yeah, so Deliver Us from Evil, and it kind of gives you an inroads into like the sort of unique lyrical contribution to this that this band has going on. But I just that very simple refrain that they use to begin this record, super catchy. Love everything about that first track, and it also just it sets the overall pace of the record. So I do think like probably you're going to hear a lot of, I'm guessing the faster tracks like Child of the Damned is great, but Black Mass for me is the doomier aspects to that track I think work really well. I love just how heavy that is. That's a really heavy song on this record, and is one that I'll kind of go back to, I think, kind of a bit of a sleeper, because a lot of people will gravitate because of where the catalog that this band sort of circumnavigates tends to be sort of the faster American sound. But for me, they are much of a slower, moodier kind of band on this record, and that's when they're at their best. I really enjoy Winter Tears and Penny for a Poor Man. I know they're like the softer sort of acoustic parts, but this band really succeeds in like making those tracks also stand out. And like I'm describing the entire EP here, right? Like this is a quick, simple, easy listen. And it not only, I'm getting to my final thoughts here, but there are no bad moments on this record. It's just full of rare gems. So nothing to complain about at all.
The fact that the death metal guy down under here, Simon, cheers to you, brother. Deliver Us rules. Kind of shows you the crossover potential it has to connect with people that are into, largely heavier stuff. I mean, Simon obviously listens to other levels of stuff as well, but a lot of death metal and whatnot, black metal and stuff. But yeah, good crossover potential there. Logan.
Yeah, I mean, favorite, least favorite, that's kind of an easy task. They're all amazing. Probably the first record we've covered where I think every single track is either a 9 or like a 10. I mean, it is kind of cheating because it's only an EP. But then at the same time, they could have added one of the extra tracks, like, Miss Victoria's come up a little bit. And I personally love The Rainbow, which ends up, on one of the reissues of Deliver Us. And it would have still been like a perfect, great 9 out of 10 song all the way through. Yeah, not a bad track here. They've got everything they do. I like how to me, I like how the songs are placed in the EP. It opens up with like a slow burning epic with Deliver Us, then goes to like a melancholy balladish kind of song, Winter's Tears. And then you got the anthemic Child of the Damned before basically doing that whole rotation over again. And I think it works well that it's 3 songs this way, 3 songs, the same. And it just balances it perfectly. It flies by. If I were to say favorite tracks, initially when I got into this, Winter Tears and Penny for a Poor Man were my 2 favorite songs. I just like the somber, more emotive style. I think since I've listened to this, longer and longer, I have grown to like Black Mass a lot more. Kellen, you did a good job summing up that. But Child of the Damned is probably one of my favorite tracks, just with the drum performance and the riffing style. It just, what a great aggressive song for them. And like, as I said, the tom rolls just make it. I think Penny for a Poor Man, though, is still my favorite song on the album. I just love the lyrics here. It's a very much like just show empathy kind of song. Like, we could all be this person, this poor man. He was once a younger man, just like you and I, but times have changed for this old man. The story makes you cry. Yeah, it does. Into my acid bath book trip.
Help me, Wake. Help me.
Yes.
Save me, Wake.
Help me, sludge metal. I can't cope.
Take me to crustier lands.
And then it goes, just a penny for a poor man. Yes, I am. Like, we could all be in this position. It's, just a beautiful song.
He's basically just taking biblical things and rewriting them into a heavy metal context.
That's
why I think where a lot of the inspiration for a lot of this stuff came from.
Yeah. It just doesn't sound as cool when you say it like that, Marty.
I'm just,
And then, Lucifer's Hammer, just a great closing track, but not a bad moment on this album, as mentioned.
Jim.
No fear about sounding like a broken record. I won't be the one that you can cut and paste. I mean, crapping on any song on this, or subtracting from just 6 songs of excellence here. I love the length of this. I love that it's a 28-minute 6-song EP. To me, it feels like a short but really great album. Like I said, I can listen. If we're going to call Rain of Blood a record, if we're going to call Gore Grind records that are 15 minutes long a record, I think to me this is a record, and it feels fully fleshed out to me. Could we have had other awesome songs on it? The subsequent releases with Soliloquy and Mrs. Victoria and the Rainbow, let's go for it. But it's still great. I like that. It has this really great focus that carries you all the way through. So what easier for me to say then would be like, what are the ones I like the best? So, I really loved, Deliver Us from Evil. It's a perfect way to set the tone for the rest of the record. They're opening the door to their universe and inviting you to step through. That's really what it feels like an opener should. And it perfectly conveys that. Winter Tears, man. Like I said earlier, perfectly delivered and emotive falsetto on that. The riff is great. The bass is loud. These winter tears, I'll cry for you again. There's just so much here to go with. Even like the quick little acoustic intro. The song just feels well-rounded. Children of the Damned, I love that it's double bass banger. I love the lyrics on it. It just has great energy. Showcases that authentic drum sound. Penny for a Poor Man, when that rolling double bass finally comes in at the end, it's what we were talking about. That's when it suddenly, because it's used sparingly on that song, when it finally does appear, I just want to get up from my seat and start banging my head. Even though the song has almost like a kind of more of a hard rock / rush kind of a main riff, it gets pure metal at the end. And I love that journey that it takes you on. Black Mass, Kellen nailed it. That's their doom love letter. There's between 2:40 and 3 minutes, there's like 20 seconds of that song that feel like Candlemass to me. 2 years before their debut came out, only 1 year before their demo, but still, I love that. It really has just a fantastic doom riff in that section, but also just all the way all over it. The whole song, it feels like doom. And what a great surprise given what's come before. And it just shows you that they have a mastery of metal. And maybe not the fast stuff that was, rearing its ugly head at the time, but of just pure metal and all of its like mid tempo to slower forms, they could really own it. Lucifer's Hammer, first of all, song title, also awesome Michigan band.
Yeah.
It's got cowbell, damn it.
Yeah.
Such a great song, and I really love that line. Who will be left to toll the funeral bell? Like, yeah, I love that. It's just obviously something that's kind of like subsequent decades. A line that would be played out, but hearing it in 1984, hearing it delivered, with such sincerity, it just I really love it and feel it. It's cool to me how the album closes. The end of that song, the synth and the riff work, towards that closing, and they're playing in step, and how it kind of takes you into the nuclear explosion, which it's a little jarring at first, but again, that's Warlord like playing in this like just like little area of subtlety for the most part in their delivery, and then just like closing the record with an explosion. I love that they can surprise you that way. So yeah, this record is just like a wonderful journey through and through. But yeah, it's hard for me to pick favorites, but it's Deliverance from Evil, Winter Tears, and probably Black Mass. I think those are mine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. I like every single song on this album very, very much. And like Deliver Us, I think it's an amazing song, but it feels more like it should have been the EP's closer for me. But having said that, I don't know how I would really have restructured the track listing. I think Child of the Damned, if you want to go by the old concept, start strong, end strong, put the banger up front. Child of the Damned, start the EP off. Deliver Us, it's got that cinematic buildup in the triumphant journey throughout the track. It almost feels like the closing of a tale, especially with the lyrics. Prepare for the final awakening, prepare for the time. Damn it. Prepare for the final awakening, prepare for the time has come. Look to the heavens, a crack in the sky. The ending of time has begun, and now all that you have is gone. It just has a sense of finality in the lyrics, and it seems like conceptually it should have been at the end, but good song. And they followed up with Winter Tears, which is absolutely beautiful. It hints at ballad like sensibility, but the music remains mystical enough to keep it in a metal from the Middle Ages type of atmosphere. It feels like a deep cut. If it was on like a fully realized album, it feels like, a deep cut in the album. And we talked about Jack's vocals, the fragility to it, in his falsetto higher register, especially, but he never really, when he switches between his more powerful pitch singing to the falsetto, it's like they accompany each other so well. It's great. He has power when he needs it, and his greatness lies in his effortless switching between the two. And of course, his original singing style. Child of the Damned, it's my favorite track on the album. Unless if Mrs. Victoria was on here, that would be my favorite. That song fucking rules. That song is so good. Oh yeah, and check out Hammerfall's cover of this on their Glory to the Brave debut, which is funny because Joachim Cans from Hammerfall, he is the singer on the band's Rising Out of the Ashes album, which is a great album. Joachim, he completely kills it. And as Laz stated in there, he's a total Warlord fanboy, so it made total sense. Penny for a Poor Man, I would have maybe put this as the second song on the album, even though it does have a deep cut feel to it as well. I like how the band, they do it a lot on this album, and on this track in particular, it's interesting how they flow in and out of intensities. There's subtle keyboards lurking beneath the verse and chorus that adds a lot of space to their sound, which again gives them that fleshed out atmospheric sound. Black Mass, another favorite. I love the triumphant march of this one. Perhaps is this the birth of epic metal? I don't know when Sir Thungle came out, but this just it sounds like a proper epic metal track to me. There's a lot of twin lead guitar work on here, very full of class. Williams' guitar work on here, second to none. We've already established that. I love the feeling and care he takes in creating his solos. I love it. That one moment in the song where Zonder's like following along with those twin lines with accents and fills. It's so tasty, so good. Lucifer's Hammer, great song. Absolutely powerful up tempo, thunderous fills. It's kind of a US metal anthem, really. It's great. Perfect ending to a perfect EP. I would just, if I was going to be picky, I would fiddle with the track listing. But again, there's only 6 songs. There's only so much fiddling you can do. So really it lands where it lands. Just listening to it a lot this week, I'm like, God, each one of these songs is so fucking good. But I don't know how I would have ideas on how to rearrange it, but the way I would arrange some of the songs would mess with the way I don't know. It's perfect the way it is. Let's talk about Judgment. Final thoughts. Logan.
Yeah, this was honestly one of the easiest Metallurgy album clubs to kind of prepare and get into. I mean, since I first heard this only a year ago, so I'm still relatively new in the grand scheme of things. I've been like listening to this, at least between once a week to once a month, and I've not tired of it. It's been just a great accent whenever I'm in the mood for heavy metal, but it's not cheesy in any way whatsoever. It's not, doesn't feel close to power metal or anything like that. It's just very much just epic and earnest and genuine and kind of dark sounding heavy metal, and this just fits that vibe. And Warlord just benefits from being at the front of this scene. Of course, in their career, they didn't end up benefiting from it because they kind of ended up being one of those hidden gems. But for us as metal fans, I think still, digging if we weren't there in the 80s, it's a benefit because finding this after, over 4 decades is just amazing. And it just clicked so easily. There's not a single moment of music I would change on this album. It ranges from bombastic, just triumphant heavy metal to more emotive, ballad-esque, pulls at your heartstring kind of material. And I just love the range that's on here. So yeah, this feels like a unique and a special recording for me. And yeah, I mean, I've been feeling this for a little bit, but this is bordering on a 10 for me. This is potentially a perfect piece of just heavy metal. Yeah, it's something that we'll continue to revisit and continue to recommend. Jim, great pick. Definitely something worthy of heavy metallurgy and worthy of being, spread around. I think too many people do brush over this because it's an EP or because, just Warlord kind of did end up getting buried. So we got to make sure this gets out there more. And yeah, I'm just happy and thankful to know about this, and hopefully we'll pick it up relatively soon.
All right, Kellen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to add in terms of how classic this record is. What I guess I was trying to think about your track listing question. So yeah, go listen to it. You haven't heard it, you're missing out big time. Okay. But it's just, for me, this also feels like such an unrealized sort of like the next. I wish we had at least 1 or 2 records to follow this up on. And
with this singer, yeah,
with this line, like, that had this world to it. I think and it's not just that, like, the track listing necessarily is out of sorts, but I also feel like there should be, I want 2 40-minute listens from this band where they're able to give us more songs like this. And just as an example, like, sure, my, like, listening to Dark Sorcery from Eternus was like super promising, but then to get 2 new records that sort of like epitomize that style, for some reason, like, black metal's coming to mind here, like Emperor. If I just had the Emperor self-titled EP and you didn't have their next 2 records, it just feels like Warlord is one of those bands where this EP comes along and it's so good. It sort of bridges a world between the progressive side of American heavy metal at the time with the epic stuff of American heavy metal at the time. And overall, I just feel like I come away with it being somewhat disappointed because I wish there was more of this music out there.
Mm-hmm.
And there are follow-up efforts. I know Ben's recommending you check out some of their.
The Holy Empire is good.
Yeah.
It's a good album. Yeah,
it's good, but I feel this one gets brought to the forefront every single time you talk about this band. No one cares that it's an EP. Only that you realize it says an EP. Where's the rest? And that's one of the things that I always have with this band. Is this is like such a tremendous offering from the American heavy metal scene in the early 1980s, and we never kind of get more of them from this band. So it's just one of those things where I always feel a little bit like wanting with this, right? Not just that we didn't get the kind of track listing necessarily, or that it's just 20 some minutes long. Even if it
my complaints are nitpicky. I mean,
yeah.
I hear a song, I'm like, this sounds like an ending song.
I guess it's one of those things though, like there's a sense of like longing with this band and this record that I feel. Just because it was like there's so much promise that I feel they could have been where a band like Fates is, and they just don't have that catalog, and it's so sad because I think just like any other record that you could offer from, let's say, from 1986 in America to the early 1980s, yeah, like this should at least be competing for that top spot, even though it's just an EP.
Jim.
Yeah, I changed my tuner recently. I had a new rating system and everything. Would buy, wouldn't buy. Would buy if it was a deal or whatever. But no, man, for this one, I'm just gonna say it's 10 out of 10. This is something I could just listen to over and over. It just doesn't get old to me. I can just listen to it at work on repeat, just keep on going. And it always kind of gets me to that place. And Mike said something in the chat that I really connected with. He said, and this album's potential to heal. The healing capability of this record. That is what I get from it. I feel like there's a healing that comes from it, and I don't know what that's about or where that comes from, but whether it's like the underlying spirituality or what, but there's like definitely an emotional connection here that I feel with it. It just hits in all the right places, musically, vocally, keyboards, lyric, everything. So this is something I'm eternally grateful for Ben to talking about and putting it on my radar. And, and honestly, I when I listen to War, I just go to this one. I barely checked out the rest of the stuff. I need to really spend more time with the rest of the stuff. I know that, Damien King 1 is only on this one, but, I got to give the other stuff a chance too, but I'll make that a mission for myself.
Right.
But for this, I think this is absolutely a critical album, to own, because it perfectly embodies what heavy metal is, period.
All right. Yeah. For me, I was going to say 9.8 because if it had Mrs. Victoria, if it was a full length, had all the songs that should have been on it, then it was a 10, but it's a 9.8. It's about as close to it's perfect, other than, missing a couple songs that should have been on there, which I think in subsequent reissues that has happened. So it's a 10. It's a 10 out of 10. And again, if you are just new to this band, check it out. And other ones too. I highly recommend Rising on the Ashes with Joaquin Cans from Hammerfall on vocals. Really good. The Holy Empire, really good. Maybe not as special and good as the debut, but we say that a lot in metal, don't we? It's not as good as the demo or the debut, but yeah, that's it. Thanks for joining us. But I'm picking for next week, and I'm pulling a TJ. Are you ready? We're doing something a little different next week.
Oh, Johnny Touch too?
No. We're doing a battle, an album battle. And it is within the same band. It's a band that put out 2 albums that sound nothing alike to each other.
Is this the Pestilence? TJ did Pestilence. Oh, okay.
So we got the debut self-titled, debut DBC Dead Brain Cells album, and their follow-up Universe, which sound like 2 completely different bands. It's a little extra homework, but this is only like a half hour long. So it isn't too much, and this rules so much, and this is really interesting and good. It's also rules, but it's different. So we're doing a double header next week, everybody. Sorry for the little extra homework, but it shouldn't be too much extra, and should be fun. So yeah, Dead Brain Cells against Dead Brain Cells Universe from this 2 and done band for sure. From Canada, another Canadian band. And that's it. I will say for some show notes, there's a couple reviews I haven't reviewed from Alan to edit tonight, and another one from Logan for Friday. And then Friday evening, we're being joined by the grim overlord of Decibel Magazine, Albert Mudrain, who's joining us, and we're going to be discussing and ranking the Napalm Death catalog. So been listening to a lot of Napalm Death this week, which was kind of a last minute surprise, but it's been fun. It's been fun to re-familiarize with, but we'll talk about that on Friday. What's going on with you guys? Kellen, you got anything coming up or going on, or
yeah, not right now.
You're gonna ride the glory of the Jurgen video for 3 months.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I don't have anything planned. I have a review scheduled to do, so I'll hopefully when I get back to Kentucky, I'll get that going for you. Right on. Cool. Logan, what's going on with you?
Yeah, similar. Riding the glory of the last video I did. I'm gonna try to do something with this whole acid bath show I went to. So either like a discography discussion or something, but no.
You're gonna
we'll see.
Have
maybe
pictures of yourself crying in the auditorium.
Yeah, with everybody else. It was a big weep fest. It was great. But
yeah. Right on,
Stay
Jim.
tuned.
Right on, Jim. What's happening with you? Anything?
Well, not much. Everything kind of got quiet on me here, so a little bit of a lull in the Eihwaz world, but hopefully we'll have more to report as the weeks trudge on. There is a cool show coming here, but I can't remember where it is, so I'm sorry I even brought it up. But
well, you'll be seeing Jim on a Friday night here next month, May. We're going to be doing a thrash bracket with Jim, Melanie Loves Death Metal, and Simon from Explosive Action. So that should piss off a lot of people, and
I'm sure everyone will be unhappy. Me, unhappiest of all, because I get really mad about these kinds of things. I only made it 20 minutes into the death metal one. I don't know why I agreed to do this one. I'm going to be super pissed.
Oh, the voting on that was insane. Alan kept opening it up to the chat, and I'm like, what are you doing? No, this is... Don't. They're going to sway my what I want.
They don't deserve the power.
Well, yeah, trust no one. Exactly. So that's coming up. A whole bunch. There's a bunch of stuff. The next month is completely booked. So we're going to have fun. As always on Heavy Metallurgy, and thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys are the best on the internet. Cheers to all of you. And we'll see you. This crew will see you next Wednesday. I'll see you on Friday. So cheers, everyone. Take care.